To call to order the regular meeting of the Lakewood City Council in the city of Lakewood on March 26, 2018 in council chambers. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hall.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Vincent. Here. Theta. Here. Franks.
Here.
Gutwein. Here. LeBure.
Here.
Skilling.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Royball.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to council chambers this evening. Certainly going to start out fun and celebratory, and who knows where we go from there, but that's why you should hang out and see what happens. So if you have a cell phone, if you wouldn't mind putting that on silent, we have some special folks here today who are going to come down and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and also talk to us a little bit about 4-H. So come on down to our wonderful group. So when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you wouldn't mind remaining standing for a moment of silent prayer, that would be great. Please rise.
Now we're going to teach you the 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living, for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
All right. Please be seated, and if you wouldn't mind going to the mic, you can just go back around. Tell us who you are, what school, and we're here to talk a little bit about leadership, so feel free to share that as well.
Okay, I'm Jacob Savage. I go to Golden High School, and I do a bunch of projects in 4-H. I do leadership, leathercraft, small engines, and a few others that I don't remember right now.
That's great. Welcome.
My name is Alyssa Tedderis. I'm a freshman at Colorado School of Mines. I'm in the leadership project group at Hutchinson, and then I'm also a peer mentor in the Youth and Families with Promise program also at Hutchinson Cell Elementary.
Great.
My name is Finn Hansen. I go to Golden High School, and I do all of the same projects as Jake.
Hello, my name is Lillian Stavig. I go to Hutchinson Elementary. My projects are horse, market, pigs, leadership, clothing construction, decorate your duds, and probably another one, but vet science. Yep.
Oh, before you go, tell us about your pig.
My pig's name is Crispy Bacon. And yeah, she was born in mid-January. That's about it.
All right, thank you.
My name's Kaylee Hampton, and I go to Devlin Junior High School, and I do cake decorating, leadership, and food and nutrition.
Awesome.
My name is Freya Prince. I go to Dunston Middle School, and my 4-H projects are leadership, archery, dog group, and soap making.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you all coming out. I learned a lot, and it looks like in August I'm going to be judging or showing your pig, so that'll be quite cool. But you're doing amazing things, and I learned from all of you that you're also trying to help your fellow students and peers and friends. So thank you for that, and thanks for coming out. I hope you enjoyed your day at the City of Lakewood. All right, Ms. Greer.
Item 4, proclamation recognizing U.S. Olympic hockey goalie Nicole Hensley.
Well, this is really, really cool. And I asked Nicole, of all the wonderful places she's been around the world lately, Lakewood City Hall Chambers is probably the most impressive, and he's happy to be here. So I'm going to ask Councillor Skilling from Ward 4, which is where you're at, Councillor Franks as well as from Ward 4, and you went to Green Mountain High School. So Councillor Skilling, please read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas, as a resident of Lakewood, Colorado, Nicole Hensley attended Rooney Ranch Elementary, Dunstan Middle, and Green Mountain High Schools, and went on to attend college at Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri. And whereas Nicole Hensley started playing hockey when she was 9 for the Foothill Flyers and was the only girl on her team, and at the age of 11 started playing goalie full-time. After coming up through the ranks in the Foothill system, she played 2 seasons for the Colorado Selects Girls U through 19 AAA team, and whereas at Lindenwood University, Nicole Hensley was a 4-time All-College Hockey America athlete, compiling a career average of 2.98 goals against, 4 shutouts, an all-time NCAA Division I record of 4,094 saves, and a .921 saves percentage. That's really good. And whereas she has played in 2 International Ice Hockey Federation Women's World Championships and captured gold medals in 2016 and 2017, and was also part of gold medal winning teams in 2016 and 2017 Four Nations Cups. Nicole Hensley is the #1 goalie in the 2017 World Championships and allowed only 2 goals in 3 games. And whereas, as one of the goaltenders on the U.S. women's hockey team, Nicole Hensley won a gold medal at the 2018 Olympic Winter Games. That's great. You guys can really loud.
Now this is amazing, and it's probably the happiest this whole crowd's been in here in a long time. So we will certainly take that. So we want to present you with a couple other things. This is really cool. So this was a letter that the Vice President of the United States, Michael Pence, sent to me, but it was actually sending this to the city of Lakewood and congratulating you. So we wanted to make sure that you had that. And we are going to do a couple of other things this year. We're going to get a signed jersey from you that's going to hang in our lobby. And we are going to include you in an anniversary video for the City of Lakewood's 50th anniversary, which is next year. And then we are going to have Civic Center flags with your number and gold medal hanging throughout. So we're really thrilled, really excited. And if you'd like to say a few words, you're more than welcome to. Sure. You're probably used to this by now.
I don't know if I'd go with used to it, but I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. And growing up in Lakewood has been a huge part of my success. And to grow up in a very family-oriented community where I was able to try so many different sports, including baseball, hockey, basketball, soccer, and so many different options and ways to succeed, not only in sports, but also at Rooney Ranch, Dunstan, and Green Mountain, all fantastic schools that my sister and I were lucky enough to attend and play high school sports in, which we really enjoyed. And just so thankful to be part of a community that values family and safety and all those things that are so important for kids growing up today. And thank you so much for having me tonight.
You're awesome. What a role model. And in the proclamation, we didn't mention your most favorite shutout, which just happened recently. Yeah, please.
Okay.
This is big.
I played against the Olympic athletes of Russia in the Olympic Games, and we ended up winning 5-0, I believe, and I had 13 saves in the game, so I wasn't too busy. The girls played really, really well that game, and that helped us secure a first round bye for the elimination rounds, and so we went straight to the semis to play Finland and then on to the final for Canada.
Cool. Awesome. So thank you again. Yeah, thank you. We wish you all the best, and thank you to your family for all the hard work and dedication, and they had to sit through my State of the City speech as well, so they've been doing the tour for you when you can't, but thank you all very much. All right.
Thank you.
Clerk, please read the next.
Item 5, presentation, Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Communities Annual Report.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Tough act to follow,
I know.
but a wonderful act to
Yeah,
follow. so
incredible.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I'm Bruce Feustel, the chair of Lakewood's Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community, commonly called ACIC. With me tonight are Vice Chair Lawrence Leiber and Secretary Nicole Melandri. First, a short explanation of who we are, what we do, and why we serve. ACIC is a 30-member commission that advises City Council on policy questions such as creating dog parks, encouraging recycling, or allowing some liquor sales near schools. We are Lakewood residents, a cross-section of current or former teachers, engineers, accountants, grocers, foresters, police officers, and the like. We are grandparents, parents, basketball coaches, and soccer referees. We range in age from a bright and energetic Colorado Christian University student to a bright and energetic 80-year-old world traveler. Although we have political differences among us, we share a love of Lakewood and a belief that through careful research and thoughtful discussion, we can recommend solutions that make common sense and find common ground. We will now report on our accomplishments last year and our plans for this year. As we do so, I encourage you to think of the 3 I's that are on your screen in front of you. In your guidance to us last year, you have suggested that we improve and make more consistent our internal work processes and reaffirm our independent judgment as a commission. Also, we plan to always give you proposals that will have a positive impact. So we take these 3 themes of improvement, independence, and impact seriously. Now some ACIC history. In 2007, the National League of Cities created the Building an Inclusive Community Program. Then Lakewood Mayor Steve Burkholder and the council created ACIC, combining several existing commissions. And the City Council created ACIC to allow residents to directly provide public input on selected policy matters. And in the ensuing decade, ACIC has also taken on additional chores, such as providing an ambassador program to give council input from relevant area meetings. We also, and as some of you had mentioned to me already tonight, we work hard to stay educated, and we take advantage of Lakewood's educational programs in civics, the police department, the prosecutors, and planning. So we do all that in terms of keeping up to be able to vote on those issues. Since 2007, ACIC has presented over 70 projects and assignments, including, for example, awards for leaders. We recommended ways to recommend community leaders in Lakewood, which led to a nomination committee and the Mayor's Inspiration Award. On recycling in Lakewood parks and open spaces, we presented a proposal in 2016 to encourage the use of big belly trash and recycling bins in our parks, and we saw those big belly bins opening and actually functioning last month. And the third example is diversity on boards and commissions. We completed research and made recommendations to gain more diversity representation on city boards and commissions. Also, ACIC has been a proving ground for additional city service. 4 ACIC members have moved on to the Planning Commission, and 4 have moved on to council, including Council Member Roybal, Harrison, and Gutwein, and former member Shakti. So, our current executive committee is in front of you in terms of the 3 of us, and also tonight we have Jeff Porton, who's here as part of our sustainability committee, and the chair of the committee, Lynn Novak, who's chair of neighborhoods, and Diane Duffy, who's chair of civic awareness. I'd like to ask all of our chairs and members of ACIC and children with members to please stand at this time. And now, here's Lawrence.
Thank you, Bruce. The ACIC Commission is made up of 3 officers and 27 committee members who serve on one of each who serve on one of 3 committees. The Civic Awareness Committee makes recommendations that promote civic responsibility and participation through the education to create more connected citizenry. A couple of proposals they've done over the past has included a Leadership Lakewood program and promoting civility in Lakewood. The Neighborhoods Committee makes recommendations that create relationships by encouraging involvement with diverse populations to improve neighborhood pride and quality of life. Some of the examples that they've done over the years has been smoke nuisance, like residential outdoor fires, and City of Lakewood 50th anniversary ideas, which is next year, as we've talked about. The Sustainability Committee makes recommendations that support and encourage a balanced vision of conservation and renewal. Examples that they've done, as Bruce talked about, is recycling in Lakewood Park and open spaces and additional community gardens. In 2017, we had quite a productive year for the ACIC and our members. A few assignments that we've worked and recommendations that we worked on included recommendations for having a community celebration that includes fireworks, and we're happy to see that City Council adopted this program through the budgeting process, and it's our understanding that the Big Boom Bash will be held on 4th of July at Jeffco Stadium. A proposal that suggested ways to help advertise and educate residents on safe bicycling in Lakewood, and recommended changes to the liquor distance requirement in regards to the relationship between schools and liquor. City Council adopted the ordinance which eliminated the 500-foot requirement for hotel and restaurant licenses. In an effort to continue our education, over the past year, a few of our guests included Keith Dameron, who educated the ACIC members on the history of Lakewood streets and their names. That's actually quite interesting. A member of the Action Center, who gave a presentation on the programs and services for our low-income residents. Jeannie Ramsey and Holly Boehm from the City of Lakewood Historic Preservation Committee, who told the group about the kind of projects and the commission works on and criteria for preserving an area or property. And Dave Appel from the Clements Community Center, who spoke on the many programs and services available to the seniors within our community. We have also started to revamp our research and proposal writing to share best practices in an effort to increase deliberation of topics going forward. And speaking on that, I'm going to introduce Secretary Nicole Melandri, who is now going to speak on behalf of our future plans of ACIC.
Thank you, Lawrence. There are a variety of projects currently in the works. City Council assignments for ACIC to research and provide recommendations include examining youth tobacco use, state and local laws regarding tobacco use, consequences of regulating tobacco products, and the possibility of licensing tobacco retailers in Lakewood. Exploring the possibility of conducting a car-free day event, including possible locations around the city where the event could be held. Grassroots assignments include recommending a possible name change and mission purpose statement for ACIC to better reflect who we are and what we do. Some members of ACIC serve as ambassadors for the City of Lakewood, attending other agencies and organizations' public meetings and reporting back to City Council on issues that may pertain to the City of Lakewood. We would like to thank Heidi Barthol, Trish Merkel, Lawrence Leiber, and Bruce Vostel for being ambassadors. Currently, ambassadors are attending Jeffco Parks and Open Space Advisory Committee, Jeffco Board of Commissioners, Foothills Animal Shelter Board, Jeffco Public Schools Board of Education, and the Regional Air Quality Council meetings. I'll turn it back over to Bruce to wrap things up.
I want to end with 3 points. First, we pledge to continue those 3 I's. We will improve our process, skills, and reports. We will remain a strong, independent body, and will make a positive impact on our community. Also, we want to note that we appreciate all the assignments that we do get from City Council, and we're glad to act as a sounding board or in any other capacity that you ask us to do. Second, a huge thank you to the city for the 3 wonderful staff who've served us this last year. Margie, who played Hurt for much of the year, Ethan and Michelle did a tremendous job. They're always positive, helpful, and knowledgeable, and we really, really appreciate them. And when I was talking about why we love Lakewood, those guys are part of the reason that we really do. Lastly, we want to invite interested residents to attend an ACIC meeting on the 3rd Wednesday of any month. Whether you want to see what we do or consider becoming a member, please join us at 5:30 for a committee meeting and 6:30 for the full commission meeting. More specific information is always available on the city's website, and we will make you feel welcome. That concludes our report, and we'd appreciate any questions you might have.
Great. Well, thank you, Chairman, and to your board and all the members. I had the opportunity to come and visit with you at your retreat, which was fantastic. And I'll tell this body, they're looking for work. So, and I I explained to them we have quite an agenda, as everybody knows, but they're more than willing and they're excited to get to work. And I also encourage them to look at things that they see in the community or areas in the community where they can bring things forth as well. So, again, want to thank you. Every year, I mean, I say this, I said it last year, it gets better and better, the work you're doing. We are very, very grateful and want you to always feel that that you have a great importance to our community and to the work that we do. So with that, are there any questions? Look at this. Councilor Skilling, I guess you shouldn't give him the mic. He'll start assigning work. Councilor Harrison.
I just want to tell you thank you for all the hard work that you put in as a commission. As you mentioned earlier, I got to be on ACIC many years ago, and it was absolutely one of my best experiences with the City of Lakewood. It's really fun because you get to think about a lot of things, but the best part is you don't have to put on gloves or boots to go do them. You come up with great ideas and then pass them off to other people to do. So it's a wonderful way to make a big difference in the City of Lakewood, and you guys do. So thank you so much.
And since we have a lot of youth here and we've had a lot of youth participation, is there an age limit as far as membership goes? There we go. Send that out into the community. There we go. All right. Well, thank you all very much. The clerk, please read item 6.
Item 6, Resolution 2018-11, reappointing members to the Lakewood Planning Commission.
All right, and I'm going to turn this over to Councilor Franks, who's going to... Councilor Abel.
Thank you. I will turn this over to Councilor Franks.
There we go.
It is, as chairman of the screening committee, I'm always impressed with the quality of the folks who come to volunteer their time for us. and it's a real privilege to announce these appointments, and I'd like to share that with Councilwoman Franks tonight. Barb?
So tonight we would like to reappoint the following two individuals to the Lakewood Planning Commission: Johan Cohn as a Ward 3 representative and Alex Bartlett as the Ward 2 representative. And we'd like to see, if you're both in the audience, if you could stand to be recognized. Johan.
All right. This is okay. So is there a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion?
I
Councilor Franks, would you like to make a motion?
guess now in the future I'll finish through with that. I'd like to move that for the accepting of the recommendation for Johan Cohn of Ward 3 and Alex Bartlett, Ward 2, for the Planning Commission.
Second.
Now I'll second it.
All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. Councilor Franks, will you vote? You hit speak, I think. There we go. All right. Congratulations. 11 ayes, 0 nay. Welcome back. Okay. Will the clerk please read item 6?
Item 7.
Item 7.
Resolution 2018-12, reappointing a member to the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission.
And the recommendation is to reappoint the following individual to the Lakewood Historic Preservation: Nicole Lane. Nicole, are you here? Not seeing her. I will go ahead and make the motion to accept the recommendation for Nicole Lane to be appointed to the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. Passes 11 ayes, 0 nay. The clerk please read item 8.
Item 8, Resolution 2018-13, appointing and reappointing members to the Lakewood Board of Appeals.
And the recommendation is to appoint Matthew Leonard and reappoint Robert France as members to the Lakewood Board of Appeals. Are both the gentlemen here?
Yep. All right.
And I move to reappoint Mr. France and Mr. Leonard to the Lakewood Board of Appeals.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. Councilor Abel? And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nay. We actually had some work for the Board of Appeals, right? Keeping you busy, so thank you. And will the clerk please read item 9?
Item 9, Resolution 2018-14, reappointing a member to the Lakewood Judicial Review Commission.
And the recommendation is to reappoint Chief Judge of the 1st Judicial District, Philip Nolte, to the commission. And so moved.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Item 10.
Item 10, Resolution 2018-15, appointing and reappointing members to the Lakewood Victim Assistance Compensation Board.
A recommendation is adoption of the resolution will officially appoint Patrick Sandoval and reappoint Mavis Salazar McFalls as citizen members of the Lakewood Assistance Compensation Board, and reappoint Mark Dietel as an employee member of the Lakewood Victim Assistance Compensation Board. Are those in the audience here so they can stand and be recognized? Okay. Not seeing them, I move to accept the recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Please. Votes. Passes 11 ayes, 0 nay. All right. Well, thank you to everybody. That was quite a list. You guys have been meeting a lot, so thank you to the committee as well. And are we fully stacked, or are we still looking for volunteers?
ACIC still had some openings, I believe.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Well, before we go into public comment, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Hodson to give the community an update.
Thank you.
I have an important announcement, and that is that we've recently been notified by GSA, otherwise known as the General Services Administration of the federal government. And through this notification, they indicated that the Department of Health and Human Services, otherwise known as HHS, has denied the request by the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless for the property, the 59 acres on the Federal Center site. So just to reiterate, GSA indicated to us very recently that HHS has denied CCH's application. Do you get all those? GSA said that HHS denied the CCH application. I don't have more information. I know that may bring several questions. GSA is planning to proceed with the public auction where the property was before the injunction by CCH. So that's really all we know at this time. I commit to you that as we get additional information, I'll make sure that that is distributed to you as well as to our website so folks can stay updated. I know this is of great interest to you and certainly to our citizens. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to you and your staff for all of your hard work throughout this as well. So this is the point where we're going to have public comment, and before I go to public comment, I'm going to go a little bit out of order and go to Councilor Skilling, who's going to talk about one of the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. So the item on the consent agenda, and I apologize, I don't know the exact number, on the consent agenda is the fee in lieu ordinance that we had on for first reading.
Item 15.
Item 15. So I'm going to move that we remove that item from the consent agenda and that we move that into general discussion. And the reason that we're doing that is to reschedule some of the upcoming events, in particular moving the second reading back 2 weeks, and then in its place on April 9th, putting in a follow-up session in which we will consider the Planning Commission recommendations and some of the red lines that have been presented. We'll go through that red line, get a consensus and discussion on April 9th, and move forward with the second reading. That's what I would propose.
Okay, so council will discuss that. And I thought that was important because I know some in the community had thought that there was an opportunity to speak on first reading ordinances. And in fact, a community member sent out a widespreading email saying, come and make a scene at public comment. We demand to speak. Well, we certainly always want to have you have the opportunity to speak, but we also have a process in place that allows for first reading ordinances. That's the setting, that's the notification to all of the community that a public hearing will be taking place at a date certain. So there was some questions about that this weekend, and I'm sorry that you may have been misinformed. But if you ever have those sort of questions, reach out to one of your council members. We'd love to have that opportunity rather than, I think, spreading fear and other things throughout the community. So with that, I will go into public comment, and this is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the City Council. I ask that all in attendance observe the decorum in the City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. There is a 3-minute limit time period on this. So this little box here will go green for 2.5 minutes, and it'll go yellow for half a minute, and then it'll go red, and I'll politely try to wrap you up from there. So first up, Mr. Mace, did you mean to sign up under public comment, or were you? All right. That's what I thought. Come on down. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. The reason I'm here tonight is I have got a big problem that council needs to take care of immediately. There's been issues at Lakewood Wadsworth Station between the hours of 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. The reason I know this is because I'm out at those hours because I'm just barely getting home from work. And the reason I'm saying this is because a bunch of hypodermic needles have been found in that area. A bunch of prostitutes have been found in that area. And I'm tired of the threats and the, choice words I can't use. But the city of Lakewood needs to work with RTD. The reason I'm bringing it to council's attention is because I called RTD and they told me that a couple of council members said that they are not sending the police department unless they have been called. Can somebody answer to why the police department is no longer down at Lakewood Wadsworth Station? Because it used to be that there was a patrol unit, empty patrol unit, on the northbound side of the Lakewood Wadsworth Station. I would like an answer, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clifford. Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, City Council. Haven't been here in a while, but, and this is kind of like the first time I wanted to address on a personal matter that affects me personally. So I've always talked about general principles before, but, so I'm the president of Westland Village Homeowners Association, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the 51 homeowners of Westland Village Homeowners Association. I don't really pretend to know the personal opinion of every one of them, but I know that the general consensus is that we're all frustrated. And before I get into the issue, personally, I feel very fortunate to live in Ward 1, because ever since I've lived here for the last 12 years, we've always had at least one member on City Council who has empathy for the concerns, interests, and needs of the residents of Ward 1. And I would say that currently we have 2 members that have empathy. So my hope is that someday, I don't know when, but my hope is that someday that the staff will have the same level of empathy and that level of commitment. So Westland Village is a townhome community, and like many townhome communities, we have carports. A few years back, our board became aware that our north carports needed to be replaced. The north carports service 16 of our 51 homeowners. After reviewing a number of bids over the last few years, we finally accepted a bid from Western Maintenance for the job. They dismantled and removed the old carports, and they installed footers in the asphalt for the new carports. And then I don't remember the exact days, but I believe it was in July or August, I think probably August, then that the city put a stop work order on the project. So basically, we were expecting to have this done in August, maybe September at the latest. And if you look at your calendar, winter's already over. So they're still holding us up. I believe they're still, it may be resolved that I don't know of so far. But, so I don't really know the details of why the original permit was canceled, but that's really beside the point. My main point is that the delay that we've endured from the city over the last 8 months is unacceptable. I am not questioning the fact that our contractor has probably made some mistakes in the process. He probably has not dotted all his I's and crossed his T's perfectly. But that's really no excuse for the way that our 51 homeowners have been punished by the city. So, and if my comments seem harsh, it's after months and months of frustration. And my main point is, I don't really know all the details of all the problems. I really didn't get involved personally in questioning what was going on until maybe November. I'm a little bit more aware of the initial problems, but my main point is that it should not take 8 months to communicate to the contractor what needed to have taken place in order for the permit to go through. That's my main issue. It should not take 8 months. And I don't even know how much longer it's going to take. So I don't really know whether the staff's job in the matter is to help us out or otherwise, but if they're seeking to help us, I haven't seen any evidence of that. And all the communication I've received from the staff, there's been a few emails and one personal meeting and a few things like that, but the communication I've received from the staff has always been very smug, and it's always our fault. It's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. And that's part of the issue, is that you really can't correct your own shortcomings if everything's always somebody else's fault. So that's my main point, that it's taken so long. It should not take 8 months. I have other issues, but don't have time to get into them all now. So, and I'm not going to stick around to hear a response because it's getting close to my bedtime. So I'll find out later. Thank you for your time.
So we'll make a quick response. We'll have somebody get back to you. We have your information right here, and we'll figure out what's going on and have a great night. All right. Ms. McGee? Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Laura McGee. I'm a constituent of Ward 3. I live in Lakewood. I don't need to state my address? Okay.
No, we have it on file. You're good.
So the last time that I came and spoke before council was more than 10 years ago, where I brought petitions from students, schools, parents to fight to keep school resource officers in our high schools. I think I've maybe attended 1 or 2 council meetings, but I'm not really aware of the protocol now for speaking, so if I overstep, I'm sure you'll correct me. I wanted to first thank the council, the individual members, for everything that you have done in listening to constituents to oppose the development by CCH on the Federal Center property. I think for the first time, I know a lot of my neighbors, and I felt that in many years, we have council members who are in fact responsive to concerns and who show caring to those concerns. I would like to thank Councilmember Skilling for over a month ago. I was in the city manager's office and he simply overheard me asking questions. He stepped forward and gave quite a bit of his time talking to me and redirecting me and helping me learn that my own council members have a monthly ward meeting, have 2 in fact, who they give generously, and I've since learned most of you do the same for your constituents. I read I'm not sure what the city newspaper is called, Lakewood something, all right? I read Mayor Paul, your statement where you, in the beginning, the one that just came out, recognize that we do have a lot of fears about the development in our community. At our Ward 3 Saturday meeting, we had a presentation by Robert Smith of the Economic Development Department, where he is very proud and gave us a very entertaining presentation that the city of Lakewood has 44 square miles, just like San Francisco. And then as he flashed through 30 minutes of slides for development, it occurred to me, oh my gosh, our fears that you want to turn us into a city like San Francisco are maybe justified. There are fears. I think you have all heard concerns that we have about the way we're moving in development. Number one, which I never hear anybody talk about, is water. We don't have the water to sustain this kind of growth. We are looking at higher and higher density, and I'm hearing a lot about affordable housing being batted around. And I don't hear anything about what do you, as the governing body, consider affordable housing to be, because we have the buzzwords of mixed use. Every mixed use development I've looked at, those housing costs are out the window. Young 20-year-old, young 30-year-old professionals and families can't afford those prices. So what is that? Last summer, I guess I started becoming a lot more involved because we tried to just get the hours changed in our neighborhood park. We have a lot of people from Denver come into the park. We are having more crime. We are having a lot of drug paraphernalia, which somebody from the park department affirmed to me that they're finding a lot of things. We have kids, etc., having sex in the park at night. We wanted our park to be from dusk till sunset, from sunrise to sunset. So what we learned was that the director of community resources, I think, is the only person in the city who can approve an hour change. And they want those hours standard across the city. This brings up, we have a city council, city manager form of government. And so in pursuing this, and since this ordinance is now removed from the agenda, I'm looking at a proposed ordinance for the parks where so much authority is given to that same director. So council members establish policy. A city manager implements policy. And when you transfer policy decisions to the city manager, you are abdicating your responsibilities. And for citizens to be told that we have, sorry, okay.
Finish up, that's cool.
Okay. So for us to be told that we have no recourse to try to get this done, it makes me think, how many places in the city code do we have this exact same problem where one person has that much authority, which is really council authority? So I'm asking you to please revisit that, and as you're changing other sections, and give us the opportunity to comment on that and hear us about the high density development concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back out. Mary Gillickson. Good evening.
First of all, I wanted to thank you guys for coming up with a great work product, the Policy and Procedures Manual. Specifically, I'd like to thank Councilors Abel and Franks for writing much of the document and for initiating it and pushing the process until it finally got done. I think you all have something to be very proud of in that document. Lakewood citizens have been concerned with the interpretation and lack of enforcement of mixed-use zones for several years now. Because of that, City Council established MES zoning as a priority at the annual retreat in March 2017. In late summer, it was then handed off to the Planning Commission to address, along with several other issues that needed to be addressed. The Planning Commission then went to work diligently, spending many hours coming up with open houses and study sessions to address all of these issues. I think they did a great job. I attended one of the open houses, and while I was there and I got to address some of my issues, I heard some of the planning staff explaining to members of the public that the MES zone was an aspiration or suggestion, and it was not an enforceable code. In November, I attended the MES study session where the chairman and some of the commissioners were gracious enough to let the public make comment, even though it's not something that they typically do at their study sessions. It was at that study session that the planning director provided his rewritten ordinance on the MES zone to the Planning Commission. He removed some words, added some sentences, and basically turned it into something that represented his interpretation of the MES zone and not the citizens' intent of the MES zone. At last City Council study session last week, city staff brought in a guest speaker to explain to City Council why the city planners, planning director's interpretation of MES was the correct one. It's my understanding that the zoning ordinance is a citizens' document. It was developed by the citizens and with the citizens' purpose and intent in mind. The new rewrite of the ordinance, which is now available on the city's website and which will be the focus of a planning commission public hearing on April 4th, is not written to protect the citizens' intent, but rather to benefit developers. It is a travesty. I don't have faith that the planning staff will make changes to it regardless of the comments made at the hearing, due to their inability to respond to the community's wishes up to this point. With respect to the MES zoning ordinance, their development dialogue has been a one-sided lecture. When this ordinance comes before council in the coming months, please keep in mind the citizens' concerns that you've been hearing over the years and vote to protect the intent of the citizens' interpretation. If city staff and city council believe that MES intent is not defensible in court, we need to do something about that. If current city staff can't do that, then maybe we should bring someone in that can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kerr. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see all of you. Did I hit a button? I think I hit a button.
I think you're all right.
Okay. Hello, members of the City Council. My name is Braden Kerr. Today I am here representing Jeffco Students United for Action. We are a student advocacy group that is based out of Jeffco, out of the Jeffco School District. Today, I come before you with a request for a simple, common sense regulation, a request to regulate the sale and purchase of dangerous weapons inside the city of Lakewood. Specifically, we would like to see a halt on the sale of bump stock attachments for semi-automatic weapons. These attachments can turn legal semi-automatic weapons into weapons that can spray bullets like an illegal fully automatic rifle. These attachments were used in the murder of 58 people in Las Vegas when the shooter broke through a window in a Las Vegas hotel and used a converted semi-automatic rifle to spray gunfire into a crowd of people. People from all sides of the political spectrum have agreed on this issue. Donald Trump has even taken actions to regulate bump stocks. Most of his actions haven't gone that far. And Democrat Dianne Feinstein has introduced legislation that would ban bump stocks, but it has not gotten anywhere in Congress. When a similar bill was held in the state legislature, it was also killed. In the absence of action on the federal and state levels, it comes down to our local governments to ensure that weapons which have the potential to cause massive damage are regulated. We are asking for a ban on selling bump stocks. If an ordinance was passed concerning bump stocks, it would make our community safer. So I stand here as a student, a movie watcher, a concert attendee, and as a concerned citizen, asking for this simple regulation to be put in place so that Lakewood will become a safer community for all of the residents that call this great city home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Ava? Good evening. Welcome.
So my name is Ava Lundeen, and I go to Bear Creek High School, and I'm also part of Jeffco Students United for Action. I'm here to voice my concerns over bump stocks and the sale of them in the city of Lakewood. So bump stocks are attachments that allow a semi-automatic rifle to mimic a fully automatic weapon, and they can allow these semi-automatic rifles to fire hundreds of rounds a minute. Bump stocks were used in the Las Vegas shooting that left 58 people dead and more than 800 injured. The Denver City Council in January passed a measure that banned the sale, storage, and possession of bump stocks, and it's called, if you look on the website, file number 17-1400, version 1, and it's a bill for an ordinance amending one of their sections concerning the regulation of assault weapons, banning bump stock, firearm mechanism, and conforming the maximum capacity of ammunition magazines. And I'm here to ask for the Lakewood City Council to do the same. Bump stocks are a threat to everyone in our community. While my hope is for gun reform nationwide, it starts small here with local governments. It takes small steps, and the Lakewood City Council making this step, it will be a step in the right direction, a step towards something much larger. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Ms. Judson? Good evening.
Hello, City Council, Mayor. I just wanted to say I appreciate all of you and your work very much. And I wanted to indicate my support for Pete Roybal for Mayor Pro Tem. I believe that he is experienced, he has great executive ability, he's practical, he's energetic, he's come up with many initiatives to promote the interest of citizens, even on a volunteer basis. He's promoted food baskets for the needy. He's also developed an app for citizens to file complaints and to make our government more transparent. And I definitely support him for Mayor Pro Tem. I feel he's a person that would meet the needs of our citizens. I also wanted to, I know this is maybe more controversial, but I'd like to speak in behalf of the Strategic Growth Initiative to say I would like City Council, if it comes before you, to vote to put it on the ballot so that voters here can vote on it. And then I wanted to bring to City Council's attention that I know of someone that recently had 2 cars stolen on Green Mountain, so right off of Union, right in the middle of Green Mountain area. So anyway, 3 different things. But thank you for your consideration.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Baker. Good evening. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor. I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for allowing me to speak tonight.
Could you pull the, pull the,
Sorry. Usually loud. So I wanted to speak about my concerns with our city attorneys and lack of accountability. I know we have a review coming up next month, which I think is a good start, but I don't think it's been a standard policy. I'd like to know who runs a business where you're not openly competing contracts on a scheduled basis. I'd like to know who in this room as a full-time professional does not face an annual performance review, especially in a city or corporate environment. I have deep concerns around our city attorneys not acting on behalf of its citizens. And the evidence of this has been obvious as I've been observing these council meetings and proceedings for the last couple of years. I'm looking for openness and transparency in the selection and the review process of the city attorneys. I have deep concerns on how these current attorneys were vetted, and based on their performance, I wonder why they're still here. The problem has been brought forth numerous times by the citizens of Lakewood with no apparent corrective actions. I would like the mayor and the council to take the proper steps and actions to and get back to us citizens immediately. And I wanted to thank you for your time. And you know what? I know how much of a sacrifice you all make up here. So I know I'm a little harsh tonight, but thank you for your time and your service.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming out. Mr. Plotkin. While you're coming down, I'm still trying to find that $800 million for a train to the Rooney Valley. Haven't found it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Alex Plotkin, 1231 Southport Court. And a few council meetings ago, it seemed that we were amidst one of those rare instances of where the public and the council were almost in complete agreement. We all realized that it was time to review the rules for the fees paid by the developers in lieu of the parkland dedication, as well as the specific regulations related to how the parkland should be dedicated for developments of a certain size. Things got rather surreal during the last study session. One could not help but wonder as to whether the attorney, Todd Messenger, was here to make a flat-out sales pitch for a legal firm whose primary business seemed to be based in playing the both sides of the proverbial fence, i.e. representing the developers and helping the municipalities to develop zoning ordinances. To Mr. Messenger's credit, he actually seemed to point out some interesting deficiencies in the city's zoning ordinances related to the mixed-use developments. Hence, and furthermore, one is left to wonder what has the city's legal counsel has been doing all this time while listening to the prevailing public sentiment and not analyzing and properly editing the existing zoning code related to the mixed-use development. This is the latest in a string of events which leaves the public wondering as to whether the city legal counsel truly serves the needs of the city council and the public. One would hope that the legal counsel is at best representative of the interest of the majority of the public, and at worst is legally neutral when it comes to numerous legal hot topic issues when it comes to development. However, one has a very hard time believing this notion after seeing that LRA Special Counsel for the Urban Renewal is Malcolm Murray, Dahl, Kuchenmeister, and Renaud LLC. On its own, that may not seem troubling until one realizes that Mr. Dahl is the attorney for the town of Morrison, and we don't need a reminder on how contested that relationship is at this time. How could the city's legal counsel allow for an entity which represents the interest of another party in a matter which is crucial to the city to be hired in any capacity? If the justice is truly blind, we implore you to review the contract of the Lakewood City Attorney based on oversight such as this. We, the taxpayers, would like to have the council and us have legal representation which is in tune with the spirit of the wider public sentiment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, anybody else? Okay. So I'm getting a little bit lax on this. I'm going to ask that you sign up so we make sure that we have everybody, but we'll bring everybody down. But it's important that people get here to sign up. We have everybody sign up, please. Thank you.
Diane Duffy. I would like to speak about the fee in lieu since it's been pulled from the agenda.
No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
It was pulled from the agenda.
It was pulled with first reading still tonight for first reading, but it's going to be an expansion, so I appreciate it. I appreciate you following the rules. Thank you. Come on down. Ms. Duffy, you've been to a lot of our meetings, and you know public comment's not accepted on first reading. Good evening.
3 minutes for you talking to her. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
I had a very nice meeting with the mayor and the city manager, and I really, truly believe that they,
you talk in the microphone, please.
That they knew about the problems within the city, and they were trying very hard to fix them. Being the patient, understanding person that I am, I also believe they wanted to get things done. I'm going to go over the goals again, and congratulations on getting rid of the Federal Center problem. The city attorney contract, zoning problems in Parkland, the campaign finance, the mayor pro tem, the initiative, and the traffic study, also known as the Travis Parker Comedy Hour. Of all these things brought up at the retreat, no action, and what there has been completely screwed up. The traffic study and the Parkland fees. That initiative that was going to come out today was ridiculous. I don't think anybody read it. I have a suggestion. Fire the city attorney. He is the head of the snake. Why has he fought and redacted court requests that we have asked for? Why does he think he can write his own resolutions and ignore the council? Why has he fought the initiative for his allies, developers? Number two, fire Travis Parker. He's got his own little kingdom over there. He can do anything he damn well wants. He zones things on his own. He collects fees on his own. He writes fees, how much they're going to cost people. He puts buildings in neighborhoods that shouldn't be there. He runs everything. Why is it appropriate for him to do that? Why can he do this without council approval? Is it for the benefit of his developer allies? Fire Jay Hutchison. Get rid of him. He has threatened, harassed, and intimidated citizens. Enough said. That should be a firing complaint right there. Boom. Fire. The city clerk. The last election, of all the complaints, shutting down the website until after the expiration date on campaign finance. 4 people failed on their campaign finance reports. She has failed at this very important task. She is manipulated by the city attorney. And it's time for her to go away too. The city manager. Is Miss Hodson too nice to handle this type A personalities within the city? Is she too weak that she can do what has to be done? Can she take back control of this city and give it back to you guys where it belongs? The council, as you sit up there on your thrones in a muffled voice, no, we've not completed anything, but we're going to have a study session to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to study that session to figure out why we haven't accomplished it.
Your time is up, sir. Your time is up, sir.
Okay, I have 3 sentences.
Great, your time's up. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. I was told tonight that I could show something on the overhead, and I'm not sure how to access that.
Okay, we can do that. I'm going to ask our clerk to look at it first, since we are on television, so we can make sure it's appropriate for our viewers at home.
Yeah, it's City of Lakewood.
Yeah, I trust you. We just want to look.
With proposals. Oh. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. This is my first time speaking before.
Welcome. Could you give us your name and address, too, for the record?
Selena Williams.
Thank you, Miss Williams.
650 Independence Street, Lakewood, Colorado.
Great. Thank you.
I brought a petition here tonight for your review. I'm here tonight because this petition was circulated in my neighborhood, and we were told to sign either A or B for changes to the traffic on our street. We were not given a choice. There was no option C. There was no write-in. And I believe that my rights as an American citizen to access my property in the surrounding community are being violated by the proposals. I work, I'm not retired, and these proposals affect my ability to get in and out of my property and go to work or go to medical appointments or anything else. I'm also here speaking on behalf of a neighbor. We have a lot of neighbors in my neighborhood that are elderly and could not come tonight. And I did contact specifically my next door neighbor who wanted to come, and she's ill, but she said she wanted me to also share that she feels exactly the same way I do. We're being trapped on our property and our rights are being violated by these proposals. And my request at the very least, there's 2 proposals. When it was brought around, people came up with 80% signing proposal B. And I don't know how to touch the map and talk in this at the same time.
You're fine.
How do you do that? Just move this over?
Can you reach it?
Can I put it down here? Yes. Oh.
Yeah, or we can.
Do you want to use my pen to point with, and you can speak from the mic? Do you want to do that? Because I can see it there.
Well, I have seen, I'm sorry, I have poor vision.
No, you're fine. Don't worry.
And I'm afraid you're not going to hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. How's that? Is that okay? Okay. This is Lakewood High School, and I'm sure you're aware of all the meetings that took place. They've been going on for a year because we have a traffic problem. As it stands now, the way it's working, I'm able to tolerate living in the neighborhood, and I can get to my work. I'm a teacher, so I have to access the road in front of my house at about the same time that students are coming to Lakewood High School. So it's a problem for me personally to get to work on time. Proposal A was voted down. 80% went with Proposal B. So I just brought Proposal A so you could see it. It was a very strict proposal. The one that was approved at 80%, there's a significant problem with this proposal because it's going to be instituted in the fall of 2018. And what it's going to do is, if you study it and look at the piece of work that I gave you, Proposal B, it's going to have traffic that comes, this is 6th Avenue, this is the frontage road, this is Independence. It's going to block traffic from making a right-hand turn onto Independence. It's also going to block traffic coming out of the school from making a left-hand turn. So it's essentially going to become a one-way for certain times of the day, key times of the day. And what that's going to do is exacerbate a problem we have, a bottleneck where this frontage road intersects Kipling, which is a main artery of the city. And I already deal with a very dangerous and problematic ride to work just trying to get onto Kipling, because I always have to go Kipling. I either go into the northern Jeffco or southern Jeffco for my positions. This proposal, if it's instituted in the fall, will make this much, much worse, because there's a secondary problem that needs to be addressed by the state, and they're not willing to address that bottleneck there for 2 years. And at the very least, my request is that somehow council influence the Proposal B not to go into effect until we have the development on Kipling, because it is extremely dangerous for people trying to get onto Kipling. And if you've got nonstop people on this street and on this service road, it's going to probably require that in order for me to get to work, I have to go the opposite direction, go on 8th, come up Holland,
So
get on
thank
6th
you.
Avenue.
Your time's up, and I let you go over because we were moving some things around. So
I
I
appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we'll get your information and see what's going on.
May I ask you one question, sir?
Sure.
I would like to know why the city of Lakewood would put a petition like this out in the neighborhood, demanding that we make a choice between A and B without consulting you.
Thank you.
And other members here.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Hield.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I'm Alan Heald, 13676 West Alaska Place. And tonight I'm speaking to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the mayor and all of City Council for the hard work on getting policy and procedures completed. This is a very important part of the city of Lakewood, and I think far too important to allow it to languish. So it took a great deal of effort to get it, a process created to move it forward, and a lot of work, and I just want to thank everybody for getting it done. I especially want to thank Councilors Franks and Abel for kind of being the pressure to move forward, and everybody else stepping up, and Mayor Paul for your leadership on getting this done. The drafting committee, I think, and with Mayor Paul, did a super job of distilling down a lot of information into workable form. The facilitator, Jody, did a tremendous job in keeping the conversation moving and eliciting, interaction and hard work from everybody. So I applaud the process and the work that you all did. I'm most grateful that the rights of the public to provide input are alive and well in this document. I think that's critical to many of us and critical to our form of city government. Communication is vital. So thank you so much for getting it done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Come on, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to finish the last two sentences of Mike's talk. It says, to answer your question, who runs this city? It's the developers through your city attorney, and it's time to take the asylum from the patients. Thank you for your time.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Mr. Mace left, so we'll figure out what's going on at Wadsworth. I certainly understand concerns related to park times. I also understand uniformity as to our parks and people who use various parks. But I think if there's safety issues, that's something that certainly we can look at. Cars being stolen, unfortunately, is something that is really, really bad in the Denver metro area in the state of Colorado. So, just be vigilant, and our police see it all the time. A lot of times they are crimes of opportunity, I think, where your keys are left in it or something like that. So let's keep that in mind. Councilor Abel, you have a comment?
I do. I would like an explanation of why, if we pull something off the agenda, we can say you can't comment about it because it's on the agenda.
Because public comment is reserved for items that are not on the agenda.
But if we pull it off the agenda, then it's not on the agenda.
Still a first reading ordinance. I also want to touch on something else. It's hard for everybody to sit up here and you wonder, what do you say when you have comments directed at staff members? And this is going to be painful for our staff as well, because they don't want to hear it from me. But our community is great, and yours and yours and your opinion matters just as much as Susan that I talked to at the grocery store yesterday. There's 155,000 people in this community, and the majority of them love it. And the majority of our employees also work in the city of Lakewood. And I'll say one thing, to say that there's any bit of corruption amongst this group of people. Are we imperfect? You bet. Every single one of us. Are we a perfect body? No. And ironically, there wouldn't be a need for government if everybody was perfect. And if laws were just straight black and white, you wouldn't need lawyers. I'm sorry, my colleagues would be out of a job. But that's why we have these things, and they're never going to be perfect. And they get to the angst, and they cause consternation, and they cause this. But to come up here and continually attack the staff. We have a city manager. If you have a problem with a staff member, don't come here and make an allegation that a 30-plus year member, highly respected in our community, is out threatening people. That's just not accurate. That is not accurate, and it's not fair. These people have wives, they have husbands, they have kids, they live in our community. They show you the respect, and if they don't show you that, then that needs to be made aware to our city manager. And to say that this woman doesn't have the backbone, that offends me, and that should offend everybody in this community, for somebody who's worked for our city for over 35 years and is well respected throughout not only the city of Lakewood, the state of Colorado, but the whole entire nation. She could get up and leave any day and go work for any municipality. And I sometimes question, why stay here? You should want to come to a place where you're respected by everybody. Doesn't mean you're perfect, doesn't mean that you make mistakes. At the end of the day, this body of 11 makes the choices. So if you have a problem with an ordinance or a rule that's in place, that stops with us. If you're upset about a zoning thing that was passed in 2012, some of us members were on the dais. That stops with us. We take that blame. We are the body. We are the body, not the staff. And so I have got to say, if you were somebody that was looking to come work for the city of Lakewood, would you watch tonight's meeting and say, I want to work at that place? And shouldn't we be trying to find the best and brightest and empower our staff to be creative? And when you get told, I'm sorry, we don't see it that way, that means you're wrong. Or a council member says, my question hasn't been answered for 2 years. No, your question has been answered. You just don't like the answer. Well, if you don't like the answer, let's change the law, because we have the opportunity as the elected officials to change the law. So I'm going to say the buck stops with us. We take responsibility. We are accountable to you. Your opinions matter just as much as everybody else in this community. And I would ask, actually I would beg, that you show the same respect to these people who come here day in and day out, who've come here for years and seen this community change. And you want to know what? If it's been so bad, why is the city of Lakewood such a great community? Because guess who's come and gone? Elected officials. We're here for 4 years. We're here for 8 years. These folks have been here for a long time. And everybody I talk to says they love Lakewood. Well, I got news for you. It ain't because of your elected body. It's because of the folks who work here and care about our city. And I would encourage you, when you look at civility, think about it. Think about these folks who have families, who've given their lives and their careers to this city. And I will stand by their side each and every time. Thank you. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
With the removal of item 15, the consent agenda consists of items 12, 13, 14, and 16 inclusive. Item 12, Resolution 2018-16, requesting authorization for the submittal of an application for and subsequent acceptance of a grant from Great Outdoors Colorado Protect Initiative to provide funding for the acquisition of a portion of the Taylor property. Item 13, Resolution 2018-17, adopting the 2018 City Council Policies and Procedures Manual. Item 14, Ordinance O 2018-3, endorsing the projects and project funding levels in the City of Lakewood 2018 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And item 16, approving the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of February 12th, 2018.
Thank you. Councilor Skilling has already indicated that he would like to pull item 15 and put it under general business. And Councilor Franks, you'd like to pull an item as well.
Yes, Mayor. I would like to pull number 13, Resolution 2018-17, which is the council policies and procedures for discussion in general business.
Thank you.
Mayor, are you ready for me to?
1 second, please. So I will, I'll now open the public hearing on the consent agenda on, looks like just Resolution 2018-16. Nobody's signed up on the roster to speak. Seeing none, I'll close public comment on that. I'll ask for a motion to move the consent agenda forward minus items 13 and 15.
Mayor Paul, I approve for approval the council minutes, order all ordinances except for ordinance 13 and 15, introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearing set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Councilor LeBear, thank you. All right, some reason Council Roybal was locked out, so could we clear that? All right, please revote. Okay, there we go. Council Roybal, sorry. Okay, so there it goes, it just went. So we have 11 ayes, 0 nays. The consent agenda passes. The clerk, please read item 17 into the record.
Item 17, ordinance O 2018-2, authorizing and ratifying the City of Lakewood entering into an annually renewable lease purchase agreement between All American Investment Group LLC as leaseor and the city as lessee for the purpose of financing the acquisition of certain energy conservation improvements, equipment, and controls intended to result in energy conservation savings in certain public building used by the city to conduct its governmental business, and authorizing the execution of documents related thereto.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Once again, Larry Dorr, City of Lakewood Finance Director and City Treasurer. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for getting this PowerPoint presentation. Mayor and Council, before you tonight is Ordinance 2018-2, and I want to tell you, I think this represents the largest step in the city's sustainability efforts in our history. It at least represents the largest step in terms of dollars and cents. I can tell you that, and you'll find that this project will change what we're doing in 7 major facilities across the city. So without further ado, let me just bring you up to speed on some of the efforts that have happened in the many months preceding tonight's sort of big occasion, if I can call it that. First, in 2016, we discussed with City Council as a staff the idea of having an energy audit conducted of city facilities. So in 2017, January, the city went out to a competitive request for proposals process and interviewed, evaluated, and consulted a number of different companies, and through, as I say, a very competitive process, selected the McKinstry Company to undertake an energy audit of the city's various facilities. The cost of that audit, $62,380. If you're not familiar with an energy audit, or for those in the audience tonight or watching on TV who may not be familiar, let me describe what that means. These are engineers that go from facility to facility to evaluate them in person, and of course they went to all of the city's major facilities, and then there was an analysis done of the usage of the buildings, meaning citizens coming and going, what type of activities are happening, are they passive offices, are they recreation facilities, what might they be? And then there's an analysis of the consumption of energy, natural gas, electricity, and water, and other uses at the facilities, and then comparing those to statistical averages for facilities across the country with similar uses. It's a very intense audit, and as you can see, it took a number of months to complete, and the results are very, very intense, very technical. And fortunately, we have the staff on hand to work with these consultants to understand the results of that audit. And what was proposed was a recommendation for $2,500,000 in facility improvements. And that right there is what I am referring to in terms of the biggest step forward in the city's sustainability plan, in terms at least of dollars and cents. We do have some experience doing this, but nothing has approached this number. In fact, even everything combined hasn't quite got to that level. I'll invite in a moment the city's Building Maintenance Division Manager, Wally Piccone, to the podium to describe in more detail some of the results of the audit and some of the proposed projects that will be completed through this ordinance if it is approved tonight. After the results of the audit and an evaluation of it, those results were discussed by Community Resources Director Kit Newland at our annual budget study session in September. She described a lot of the details as to the HVAC units, the changes in lighting, water consumption, and many different things. And it was Council's consensus at the study session to take the next step forward in the process, which was to include these capital projects, these $2.5 million in capital projects, in the city's budget. The next step in October was approval of the city's budget, which was done unanimously, and we were ready to move forward in the next step in the process. At that time, I advised council that we would go out to a competitive financing process in order to have lease purchase proceeds to finance some of the costs of the improvements. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on that after Mr. Piccone brings everybody up to speed on some of the improvements at the facilities, some of the results of the audit. So without further ado, let me invite Mr. Wally Piccone.
City Council, Mayor, I'm Wally Piccone. I'm the Project Maintenance Manager with the Community Resources Department, and I've been working with Larry and McKinstry on this project.
Mr. Piccone, could you pull the, I'm up here, I'm sorry. Pull, yeah, there you go.
Okay, is that better?
I think that we had people in the back that couldn't hear you, so now they can hear you. Thank you.
We've been working with Larry and McKinstry over the last couple of years getting this audit report done and ready to move forward with some of the projects that we're doing. This performance plan also addresses some of the objectives in our Lakewood Sustainability Plan, basically to implement strategies for greenhouse gas emission reductions, enhance building and energy and water efficiencies, and promote green building retrofits, as well as enhance the occupant well-being in the facilities that we use. These are some of the components that the energy conservation will involve. So what we'll look at doing in 7 of the facilities here, we'll look at updating our HVAC and optimize the control systems on our units. Also look at a comprehensive retrofit of existing lighting, fluorescent lightings and can lighting to LED lights. We'll do water commissioning as well, which will help with water conservation and commissioning with flush valves on toilets, low flow shower heads in some of the facilities, and faucet aerations. Also to look at replacing the 56-year-old ERV unit, energy recovery ventilation unit at Carmody Pool. The unit was there when we acquired the building. This will also help with the circulation of the air. That unit has exceeded its useful life. We and the building maintenance has kept it going and band-aided it for the last number of years. It's a new design. It's a long-lasting and reliable new system in there. It will help reduce our maintenance cost for the air quality, improve energy cost as well, and we will be putting in destratification fans. If you've been over to the link in that renovation, there's a big fan in the middle of the pool. In this particular project, there'll be 2 fans that help with the circulation. Also with the pool boilers, we'll be replacing 2 boilers. They're very old as well. The one at Carmody will be replaced, and the one at Green Mountain will be replaced. They're condensing boilers, state-of-the-art type of machines, reliable. They reduce our maintenance cost as well as improve energy and our costs as well. The improvements, what I've done here is the improvements are for each one of these buildings. So when you look at Carmody Recreation Center, Green Mountain Recreation Center, we'll be looking at improvements to the HVAC. We'll be optimizing the systems to show and to help us improve the energy there. Also, LED lighting will be replaced in 6 of the buildings that we're looking at. Water conservation will be in there with, as well as the pool air circulation will be at Carmody, and then 2 new boilers, one at Green Mountain and one at Carmody Rec Center. So those are 2 big of the projects. And then in these buildings here, LED lighting, optimization of our HVAC systems, as well as water conservation. So this is where we will see the energy savings that we have in all of the buildings. This is the projected energy saving in all of the buildings as well. Based on the building square foot, take a baseline of the utilities from these last couple of years, and with the projected energy use from the new improvements there, you'll see a reduction in energy use in the percentages there that we have listed. So this has been tested, and it'll help us show a savings at least for the next 3 years. These are the energy and water and emission savings. So when you look at this, is that there's electric savings in kilowatt hours in all of the improvements that we're going to do. Also gas savings in therms and natural gas. The water savings is based on savings in the gallons per year. And then the GHG savings, which is greenhouse gas per ton each year. So these will be the energy, water, and emission savings that we'll see over the next 3 years. These are the annual utility cost savings that we'll see, and these are based on the technical audit that was done. Also, these are guaranteed utility cost savings that we'll have from each one of the facilities, or a combination of all the facilities that we're going to do these projects and improvements to. So these are the numbers over the next 3 years that we'll be seeing the savings. This is the installation and construction time for the work. Normally in our annual maintenance for all of our recreation centers, we do weekly closures to do annual maintenance, from painting, floor work, carpet, grout, tile, those type of things. In these cases, we'll extend the pool closure at Carmody for 2 weeks, and they'll get in there and do the new boiler and the new ERV unit. Green Mountain is the same. We'll extend the closures for 2 weeks for that boiler replacement. And then during the work at the Public Safety Center and the Civic Center North-South and the Cultural Center and Clements Center, that work will be done during operating hours or off operating hours. It won't impact any of the programs, but they'll be in there doing all of the work with the lighting and the water conservation for the other buildings. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Dorr.
Thanks, Wally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piccone. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know that all of the details of the project were settled during the budget process last October, but I felt for the sake of the audience and for those in chambers, but also our new council members, it'd be great to have everyone brought up to speed and remind everybody what we're financing. What's happened since our last meeting is we've gone out and done a few things related to the financing of the remaining $1.5 million that are necessary to complete the project, and we're ready for your approval tonight so that we can take the next step, receive the lease proceeds, and then we'll commence with the construction of the project, the ordering of all of the HVAC units, the boilers, all the lights, shower heads, and all the low flow toilets, all of those kinds of things. But as you'll see, this $2.5 million project is being financed with $1 million from the city's capital improvement fund and $1.5 million in lease purchase proceeds. Now, the lease purchase leg of things is all new tonight, so I want to give a brief overview of some of the details and answer any specific questions you have about the financing, and then we'll take the next steps. So first, as you would guess, we undertook a competitive request for proposals process. You know, given the complexity and the nature of this particular financing, that may not have been the most efficient, quite honestly, because it is relatively small in the big picture, and also because of the length of the term. But we wanted to do a real good job to describe what was needed in terms of the amount financed, the length of the term, and what the security was, and see what bids we would get. And as it turned out, the results I'm very pleased with, and as you'll see, Stiefel Nicholas, the city's investment advisor, also felt that the results were good. You know, in this sort of a situation, we're really looking for the lowest rate and the lowest amount of fees. And All American Investment Group of Denver really provided the best proposal. It's really easy to open those bids, and low bid will typically, will almost always win, because this isn't going to be an ongoing service relationship. The city will take the proceeds, repay the payments, the lease payments through the savings, and that'll be it. But congratulations to All American Investment Group. We did check their reference, and they have a great references, and they have a very good track record of getting business closed and helping out local communities. 15-year fixed interest rate, 3.47%. That's a very competitive interest rate. We're very pleased to see that. You know, this isn't the city's first foray into lease purchasing for the purpose of sustainability improvements. We did that last decade. In fact, we were, as a community, one of the earliest to do it. We financed 5,000 light bulbs to replace the city's signal lights from incandescent to LED. So we're very proud of that. That all was very successful. And then earlier, just last year, we financed the community solar garden. In each of those, the theme has been, as is the case here, the improvements should be repaid or financed through the annual savings. And that's the case here. As mentioned by Mr. Piccone, the annual payment will be less than or equal to the savings. In fact, this 15-year lease purchase is far shorter in duration than is the estimated savings, which Mr. Piccone referred to as being about 30 years. Another thing I want to mention in the terms and conditions, because this is just my area of expertise and my profession, we also asked for a response and received that from All-American with no prepayment penalty. And that's particularly noteworthy in this era of tax reform, because some of the things have changed in federal tax reform that could inhibit the city of Lakewood and other municipal issuers from refinancing those debts in the future. But we're going to maintain that flexibility with no prepayment penalties. That's very beneficial to the community. I'm pleased to see that. I don't imagine interest rates will get lower than 3.47 for such a situation, but it is certainly possible, and I have been wrong on the interest rate projections for a few times anyway. They are still very low. Security for this lease purchase will be all of the equipment, all of the property that's installed at the Carmody Recreation Center. As Mr. Piccone mentioned, we're doing about $1.5 million in improvements there, from air handling units and lighting and a number of things in between. So that'll serve as the collateral. We've had both an internal and an external legal review. That's prudent because we want to get expertise in the area of tax-exempt financing and in lease purchase financing. And then we want to make sure that all of those terms and conditions marry into our Lakewood City Charter and Lakewood City Code. Also, it's prudent whenever the city is entering into lease purchase financing with an interest rate, with a level of risk, with an amount of collateral, that the city's external financial advisor review the various proposed terms and conditions, because it's their profession. They're out in the marketplace. They see competitive financings happening all of the time, and we sought an opinion from Stifel to let us know if the terms and conditions were fair and reasonable, and that was also included in the agenda packet. And that's worth noting because, again, they're an independent firm. They have their reputation to stand behind, and we want to make sure that we're having a fair and competitive deal. Even if it's the low bid, it still needs to be fair and competitive in the marketplace. Also mentioned, but I want to read it into the record, is that the energy savings, the money saved, I should say, will be guaranteed by McKinstry. So if for some reason those savings don't materialize, the city also has a fallback to McKinstry and Company to help pay the difference between whatever the savings might actually be and what the payment is from year to year. So that's an extra little backstop, and it's one of the reasons why companies like All-American Investment Groups are able and interested in lease purchase financing at such low interest rates. So that's a significant benefit. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I want to let you know that I did invite technical questions from council. I know that the lease purchase document is long and detailed and can be technical, so I wanted to entertain any questions in advance. I will also say that these documents, if you've ever purchased a new home and financed that with a mortgage, or if you've refinanced your own personal mortgage, you know that oftentimes the documents that come well in advance are a template, and they get revised as you get closer and closer and closer to closing that mortgage loan. And in fact, some of them aren't filled out and complete until the morning of your new home purchase or your home refinance. You might have noticed in your agenda packet, one of the documents is an IRS filing, 8038G, and it can't be prepared until the morning of the closing. There are a lot of technical estimates, and it's all related to the timing of the payment and so on and so forth. So rest assured, those will all get filled in, and you'll notice in the ordinance there are certain numbers that can't be exceeded. The interest rate can't be higher, and you know, the amount of the borrowing can't be any higher than a certain threshold. So those certain belts and suspenders are in place, and you wouldn't have to worry about that. But there may be some small adjustments that come along. But in closing, and before I welcome any questions on the financing, Mr. Mayor, I do want to recommend and suggest that council consider an emergency clause for this particular ordinance. The reason being is interest rates have been very volatile, and they've gone up. You might have seen just on Wednesday that the Fed Reserve Board, under its new chairman, increased interest rates for the first time this year, but they were increased 3 times last year, and that gives me concern. In the past, we have had some emergency ordinances or some emergency clauses in our lease purchase ordinances so that the city can close its financing as soon as possible and not be vulnerable to increases in interest rates. Now, very commonly, we have asked our winning bidders, our RFP respondents, to give us an interest rate that's locked. In this particular instance, the lock expires before a non-emergency ordinance would be valid. It typically takes, well, it always takes 30 days for an ordinance to take effect legally. So, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that you and council consider an emergency clause be added by council amendment to the ordinance. And with that, I'll just entertain any questions that might come up. And of course, the public will have its opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dorr. And like you said, we've been talking about this since September, October. And council, we appreciate you getting all this information. Council's had a lot of opportunity to reach out, try to understand some of the technical aspects. So before I go into any policy type questions on this, I just want to reiterate the emergency ordinance is something that we very rarely do. In fact, I think in my tenure, this is probably the third request. And I appreciate the explanation for that and the reasoning to ensure that we get the best deal for the residents of our city. With that, are there any questions for Mr. Dorr? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2018-2. I have 4 people who have signed up, but they did not indicate they wish to speak, but they did indicate that they supported the question. So do you favor the question? Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move for.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
1 second.
Somebody said something.
I did.
Oh, as amended, right?
Yeah. And in fact, Councilor Harrison has the language. If you would mind, I'll have her read that.
So I just need to make sure. So do we need to make the motion and then I amend the motion, or?
Okay.
Yes, make the motion. You have to make the motion first because you've scheduled the public hearing for the ordinance that has already been passed on first reading. So you need to make the motion, then amend it, or a motion in a second, and then.
Right. So Councilor Vincent, make the main motion, and then we'll go into the amended.
I'd be happy to. I move for the adoption of Ordinance 2018-2 as amended on second and final reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilor Harrison.
I move to amend the ordinance O 2018-2 as follows, amending the ordinance title to include and further declaring an emergency and adding section 11, emergency. This ordinance is necessary for the immediate preservation of the City of Lakewood's peace, health, and safety for the following reason. Through a competitive bidding process, the city obtained the most favorable lease rate for the lease purchase agreement. Number 2, the city is guaranteed such lease rate through April 24th, 2018, which is less than 30 days after the publication of this ordinance on second reading. And 3, expiration of the guarantee may subject the city to higher lease rates, significantly increasing the ultimate cost of the lease purchase agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the ordinance and amended in the amended version with the emergency. Is there any comments pertaining to this? Okay, I have just 2. One is, Larry, thanks for explaining the 8038G. That was helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'll look for that tax form. And secondly, just thank you to everybody who's been working on this for a long time. So we have great sustainability goals, and this is going to continue to help us. And I think one of the main things we wanted to do in this world or in this realm is lead by example. So I hope that this can help us continue to lead the community by taking care of our own house first. Councilor Gutwein.
I just also want to take the chance to thank everyone for the hard work that went into this. And also I think it's really exciting that in addition to all the sustainability goals, there's great financial impacts as well, and great cost savings for our community. I think it's the way a well-executed sustainability project should save money. So very well done. Thank you so much.
All right, motion and a second. No more discussion. Please cast your votes. And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you all very much. The clerk, please bring back in item 13.
Resolution 2018-17, adopting the 2018 City Council Policies and Procedures Manual.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to Councilor Franks.
Thanks, Mayor Paul. I first wanted to give a thank you to all the citizens who, came out, attended the sessions, and certainly gave your feedback. And wanted to start out with an explanation of why I pulled this out. But first, kind of want to go through for maybe folks at home who haven't been tracking this as closely. We started out with an aging council policies and procedures manual, and one of the first things when I joined council wanted that to be looked at and to be reviewed. And so after a period of time, the staff put together a really good starting point for us for that discussion to begin. And so we took that draft text and we went through a very rigorous and intensive kind of workshop process where we brought in a facilitator. And we really kind of went through the language and we said, what do we like? What do we don't like? And there was just a ton of good negotiation and discussion about all those topics. And then we formed a drafting committee. I was the chair of the drafting committee, and 2 of the other members were Mayor Paul and Councilor Abel. And then we would craft language that then would go back in front of the workshop, meaning this entire body, and we would continue to refine that until we got to language that we could all felt comfortable with, and that we could agree on to put forth into this document. Very arduous process, and the reason why I asked for it to be pulled is, one, we've got a small typo that I want to propose a motion to fix, but we also did not get the harassment policy in enough time to run it through that same rigor. And it's important that this document is as well thought out, or this section is as well thought out and as debated as the other sections. And even today I heard from our staff liaison that even staff has concerns with some of the language and they would like to propose some changes as well. I've got concerns, and I know that there's at least one other council member who had concerns, and it's really not appropriate for us, I believe, to kind of do that from the dais, that single text editing, which we've all seen is a very lengthy and painful process to get to that good verbiage for the citizens. So the reason why I have pulled it is so I can make a motion to fix the one typographic error and then propose a second that we, on a date certain, come back and address both the harassment as well as the administrative piece. That way they don't languish, they get done in a very reasonable time frame, but those sections get the same attention that every other section got, and I believe we came out with a better crafted document based on the fact that we did get in there and do the hard work during those workshops. So I certainly, before I make a motion, wanted to make sure that if there was any other questions, concerns from the dais, that folks had a chance to express those as well.
So, Councilor Abel, you had a question?
I don't have a question or concern. I'll have a comment as we discuss the motion.
Will you light your light back up, please? Thank you. Councilor Gutwein.
Well, I also don't have a question. I have a comment. So.
Please.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. This has been a nice, very thorough process, and I think it was really important. I want to talk a little bit about the harassment policy. And I think that, so I wasn't frankly prepared to for this motion to pull it. So I'm kind of speaking off the cuff here, but basically, the reason that we decided to engage this conversation is that currently our elected body is not held to the same standards as our staff. We do not have a workplace harassment policy. 2 years ago, we decided that, we are leaders of our community, and we should at the very least be held to the same standards that the city staff is held to. Since then, in the 2 years that have passed, I think that harassment has been in the news on more than one occasion, from the national level to the state level to the local level. We see that we had a very long and frankly emotional instance in the state legislature. And I was there on the day that they made the determination, and that the arguments against the arguments surrounding that issue were about the process, and that they didn't like the process. So I'll come back to that in just a moment. But we also have seen this next door in Denver. So this is, to me, it is just unacceptable at 2018 to not have a workplace harassment policy. This is a very basic thing that we should all be held to. There's a lot of great things in this new policy that include training, so that everyone can be brought up to speed on what is expected. That way, people have different understandings of what all the language means. That way we're all on the same page, so that we're all set up for success. The reason that so originally we said, okay, well, let's just be held to the exact same standards as our staff. That seems fair. And we were given that language, and the issue was that language needed to be updated because it didn't include the training portion. So we had this new language that we were given, and I think it is regrettable that we didn't get it sooner, and I understand that concern, but the reality is that we all agreed that we wanted this in here. We all agreed we wanted to be held to the same standards as staff. We all saw the language in the original document. And we also all agreed that there would be a subcommittee, that it didn't go through the same process because we agreed to have a subcommittee that was Councilor Vincent, Mayor Paul, and myself, who looked at all of the staff policies. And then, this is what came back. The other policies haven't gone through legal review yet. So I know it didn't go through the same process, but it went through the process that we all agreed to go through. So I would like to see this language in here. Another point I'd like to make briefly is something that Councilor Bita brought up a little while ago, in reference to the city attorney. This is a living document, and if we finish it now, it does not mean that we can't go back and say, you know what, we should update the process a little bit more. We can always do that, but I feel like if this does not get passed in here now, it will be very difficult to come to an agreement on the process. It's always going to be difficult. I think we should use what we have, and then if down the road we want to update it when there's all these other issues that we want to update, let's go ahead and do that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Abel, you're back on. Are you still waiting to?
I just wanted to comment that this has been in the works for 5 years. And facing two different councils, we finally have agreement. I agree with Councilwoman Gutwein that it is not quite there, but it will be there quickly. And I am just glad that we have this long process coming to an end. So this will guide us for a number of years, I hope. Thank you.
So if I may speak to Councilor Gutwein, and I think Councilor Franks was looking at doing a date certain with the harassment policy to try to get it in. And I think from the way that we've had our opportunity to work with Miss Erickson and the comments that we have, and you know, Councilor Skilling's got a great knack for this, this area or this body of law, we could probably get this done in the next month and be able to adopt it as a whole. I really do think that we have the opportunity to probably have one more meeting and do this, but I think everybody on the dais recognizes the concern and the urgency.
So maybe someone up here can provide some assurances to me, because here's what I'm concerned about. We have been discussing this for how long? When did we start this process? With 2 years ago, and
In
so-
June of 2016.
June of 2016, and I brought this issue was the only issue that I was very passionate about. I've been bringing it up every time. I know you can all vouch for me that I have been bringing this up. So why are we going to be able to get this done in a month when we haven't been able to get it done in a year? So
Yep.
direct that to anyone on council.
Well, certainly, and I think it was because we received the end version last week and had that opportunity. So let me, there's a couple more counselors, and I think what I could offer is Councilor Franks can do a date certain to ensure that happens. But again, I certainly support where you're coming from, Councilor Gutwein, and I know that this is an important part. Yes, Councilor Franks, go ahead.
So I certainly wanted to echo, this is an extremely important section. We should be held to absolutely the same standard. This is close to my heart. I have personal experience that puts this close to my heart, but that doesn't mean I want to rush through and put language in that there's some concerning language in here that I think we need to make sure we all understand what it means and that we're in agreement on it. That way we can meet that standard. And so I did talk to our staff liaison, Nanette Neelan, to say, how can we fast track this? So it always was in my intent to put a date certain, because we don't want this. We want to know that we're going to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. And so my suggestion to her was that several of us have key points. We would then make those points in writing, communicate those to her. Then the attorneys could go back and give us a second draft that addressed those to the best of their ability. Then we have a single workshop to hammer through. As long as we need to sit there that night, we hammer through, get the single text done that night, including all the drafting, and then get it back on the agenda to do an amendment to bring that forth, as well as the administrative. So the point was not to in any way delay this in a way that to not get it done, but I am a process person. I'll continue to stress that point, and I want the chance to, rather than from the dais tonight, pick through the language that I am concerned about. I think it's more appropriate for me to give the attorneys a chance to recraft that language and get to a better document that then we can do a single workshop and produce the high quality that I'm so proud of in the rest of the document.
Councilor Harrison?
So I just want to make sure that I'm following the process that we're talking about. So we're going to potentially vote on the current policy and procedures manual as has been edited and corrected. We would not be including the harassment statement until after we've met, and then we'll come back with an amendment for that particular. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. Councilor Franks, I really appreciate what you've done with this document. You've gone above and beyond, frankly. And Councilor Gutwein, I totally understand your concerns. This has been your issue. All of us understand you're passionate about it. It needs to be done right. and I actually have got some questions about it myself. I think it is more prudent for us to sit down as a body again in an informal setting and take a look at what some of those potential problems could be. I actually support with this going forward with policies and procedures, but like you, this needs to be done. Have a date certain when we can get this finished and done correctly. We'll do it right the first time, and then add it.
Councilor Gutwein?
So I certainly want everyone to feel comfortable with it. So the next question I have then is, if we go this way, is it going to also require waiting for all of the other additional policies? So we looked at other staff policies that we wanted to include as well. I would, if we can cleave it and have this done separately, and then the other part can have its own separate process, then I would be okay with agreeing to this. So if I would absolutely amend. Okay.
So if we did that, we could potentially set the date certain. Ms. Hodson, we have a regular meeting on April 23rd.
Yes, you have I'm looking at the calendar. You do have a regular meeting, so you can take action on this amendment April 23rd, which is a little less than a month from now, or the meeting after that would be May 14th, which is also a regular meeting. So whichever you're more comfortable with, we can schedule that.
Councilor Abel, go ahead. I'm going to have a quick sidebar with Councilor Franks.
Would that be for would that be for decision only?
Right, that would be for approval. So it would need to be posted 2 weeks before that so that there's a full review. And Councilor Abel, my thought was sometime in that month is when you would meet and work that through. So I'm only speaking of when you would have your final approval. But remember, we do need the 2 weeks ahead for notice.
And you'll catch the mayor up on that question?
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Councilor Gutwein.
And then also just want to make sure that that timeline would also work for our attorney's office to be able to.
Yes, we would make sure of that.
Okay.
So if it's amenable to the group, and after consulting Councilor Franks in my sidebar, the 14th is actually more doable. That way we can get the workshop scheduled. We can get all the legal reviews done, and we could actually try to just get the administrative part done, but for sure have the workplace harassment. That could give us study session on like the 30th. Oh, and that's a 5th Monday.
Right. Do you want a study session on this?
Okay, so I guess we don't. So we need a workshop. So I guess what we could do is say no later than May 14th, and if everybody's schedule allows and we get it done sooner, we'll get it done sooner.
Yeah, we'll just keep our eye on how this is progressing, and remember, again, we need that 2-week notice. So, sure.
10-4. Okay. Councilor Franks, will you? Actually, I need to have a public hearing. Hold on. So I'm going to now open up the public hearing on this resolution. Anybody wish to speak? We heard a little bit from the folks who participated also in it with us. So that was interesting. And again, thanks to Jody. Nobody wishes to speak. I'll close that public comment and ask for a motion and 2 amendments. Or you could just, could she tie it into 1 amendment? Yeah.
I will do my best, but first I want to let council know, be sure to, as soon as possible, the next couple days, get all of your feedback if you can to Nanette so we can get that piece going quickly. So mark that up, get that to her, let her coalesce all that. And I'm going to try this motion here. So I move to adopt Resolution 2018-17, Council's Policies and Procedures, with 1 text change in section 4.1 for committee assignments as it relates to Head Start, changing the meeting start time from 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and further excluding the section on workplace harassment to be continued for a date certain, no later than May 14th. At that time, it would become an amendment.
Okay, before we have a second, I want to make sure, is that okay to have that all in the same body? Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Councilor Vincent. So there's motion and a second. Any further discussion? I would just echo all the thanks that we heard tonight for the drafting committee and everybody's time. And let's cast your votes. It passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you. Thanks, Dana. Okay, we'll go to the second one. Will the clerk please read item 15 back into the record?
Ordinance O 2018-4, revised 32616, repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 16 of Title 14 of the Lakewood Municipal Code relating to requirements for park and open space dedication and fees in lieu thereof. This is the revised ordinance is at your place tonight that sets the public hearing for April 23rd.
Councilor Skilling.
Okay, so I think that what we're doing in this is that the idea behind it was the draft ordinance that's in tonight's packet did not comport with what council had discussed at the study session. It did comport with a lot of ideas from Planning Commission and such, and that's fine. That's the input that we were looking for. But this particular ordinance, I think, needs one more step in the process. We're not the federal government. We don't have markup committees. And so in this instance where we went from study session directly into Planning Commission and then back again, we're missing one step, and that's to take a look at the recommendations given by Planning Commission. And rather than just insert them into a draft ordinance, we should take a look and see what should be in that draft ordinance. And that is what I had proposed that we put on April 9th, where we previously had the second reading. The first reading is appropriate tonight because all of the information is detailed memos from both staff. You've got, people can go back to even January 8th in the draft ordinance that I had submitted that was a red line. There's detailed history in tonight's packet, so I'm not necessarily concerned that anyone's missing out on what we're doing. And I actually think this is more appropriate because I think the next ordinance may be closer to what some on council may have had in mind. We can put our input, and then the public, most importantly, can comment on that version, and that is the most important thing. And so I was suggesting that we move that to April 23rd for the second reading. The April 9th will be whatever we need to style that, but it will be an update on Planning Commissions or a review on the markup process. And then what we discussed is going through each of those red lines and getting consensus on where we're at with the ordinance as it stands now, or the draft ordinance. We get a consensus April 9th. That consensus is what we'll move forward with. On April 23rd, we will have the second reading based on that. In the interim period, that will give everyone a chance to comment.
Great. Well said. And like Councilor Skilling said, we don't have the luxury of a conference committee, but a lot of times when legislation moves between two bodies, there's a committee that fleshes out what is in between. We don't have this, and it's actually very rare that we send something from our body to Planning Commission to come back. It's usually Planning Commission to the City Council. So that's where we got into this quagmire. And I'll go to Councilor Gutwein.
Only question I have is then whatever we come up with at the April 9th study session, then does that need to go back to Planning Commission again?
No,
Okay.
you're the final decision maker.
Okay.
So the Planning Commission comments are recommendations for you to review.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Franks.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of information for the community and also by way of an apology to the community. This particular ordinance mistakenly made it on the section that we get as council into the quasi-judicial section. And I turned away a number of people who encountered me in the public who tried to speak to me about this, telling them that I could not speak to them and that they needed to come and speak to this particular ordinance. So I first wanted to apologize to those folks that I turned away. It turned out that was just an administrative mistake. It got on the wrong list. Councilor Skilling discovered it and about a month ago, I guess, but somehow that did not get communicated properly through all the channels. It stayed on that list. I kept following the rules and turning people away. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it is not a quasi-judicial, and for everyone who reached out and tried to talk to me about that, in the future I will be more diligent about questioning those items to make sure I understand, and I've already received assurances from staff that they will indeed double check those ones that are not the obvious rezoning. So I just wanted to clarify that with folks who were a little frustrated with me earlier.
Councilor Bida?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to mention that what has occurred here, I realize it's maybe a little bit unusual, but it has unduly complicated this process and has unduly, I think, delayed, which I said from the very beginning should have been a very simple process. We had a ordinance that was proposed by Councilor Skilling. It was 99% the existing ordinance that had been in place for quite some time, with a couple of fairly minor and clear changes, and now we're out here into the end of March and probably sometime into April before we'll ever get to deal with it. So I find that very concerning that it has taken so long, because we're going to have this coming up again. There's going to be other proposals from council in terms of legislation, and we need to find a way to streamline that process so that this doesn't happen again. And I also want to comment that the way this came back, I was really shocked, because when we had our last council meeting, it seemed like it was very clear what we were looking for in terms of input from the Planning Commission, which was basically on two issues, or basically one issue: are we going to go with fair market value, or are we going to go with a set rate? And that was the primary issue that we were dealing with, and had gone to the Planning Commission. And so I was looking for something along that lines. You can imagine my surprise when the ordinance came back, and it was totally different than anything we had talked about here than what was originally proposed. And so it was like, I almost had the feeling like, well, what are we doing here? I mean, who's proposing this legislation? Is it the elected body here, which is, I thought, was our responsibility, or the Planning Commission? And so I think I want to make it clear, from my perspective, it's this body who proposes and votes on public policy, and certainly I welcome the input from the Planning Commission on those kinds of issues. We want their input, but in the end, it's got to come from us. We have the not only the responsibility, but I think the that's what our constituents have elected us to do.
And so that, unfortunately, that's the wheels that turn, and that's what we're doing, is getting it back. I think you're right. We sent it to Planning Commission, and they sent something else back. That was their perspective. Ultimately, we make the decisions, and we can take what they can. I certainly understand the concerns in the community, although I guess I reached out to try to get a better understanding, because there was a lot of that actually in there, and I think there were a couple tenants that were still left out. So I'd be certainly happy to have anybody in the community reach out to all of us and share what they'd like to see, or what was really different. So with that, Councilor Skilling, will you make a motion to move this from first reading to second reading on April 23rd? Is that accurate, Ms. Hodson? With a community discussion and public comment on April 9th.
Update and review of the Planning Commission recommendations scheduled for April 9th.
Okay.
So I move to move the second reading from the current date of April 9th to April 23rd with a review session in the interim on April 9th.
I second.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Graham?
What I would like to actually hear is adopting on first reading and moving the second reading as you discussed.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we adopt this on first reading. We move the second reading to April 23rd. In the interim time period, we have an April 9th review session.
Perfect.
Good?
I second that one.
All right, perfect. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Please cast your votes. All right. That passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. And our last piece of general business, as we've adopted policies and procedures, technically we have to finalize and I have to sign. So I want to open the nominations for Mayor Pro Tem, and we've had 2 folks indicate their interest in running. And so we'll make sure that that is open to everybody, either prior to our next regular meeting or or on the floor of that evening. And Ms. Greer, if we could make sure that is in the packets and scheduled, that would be for April 9th, correct?
Right.
So we'll make sure that there's notice. And Councilor Roybal has been nominated and Councilor Vincent has been nominated. So closes general business. Ms. Hodson?
Yes,
One moment, I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, you have something under general business?
I just wanted, I can do it at the end on my council report.
All right. Ms. Hodson?
Just briefly, next week, April 2nd, is a study session. You do have council orientation at 5 o'clock in the cabinet room. We will be getting one of the final installments of the housing study, and it's gotten to a point where we're ready to discuss policy implications. And then you'll be getting a presentation from our finance director on municipal funding. You'll remember we discussed this at your annual planning session. This one was kind of fast-tracked because of the timing. So this will just be educational. Our finance director will talk to you about options, and please be prepared to have whatever questions you might have. Thank you.
All right. I'll go to council reports. I'll start down on my left. Councilor Roybal.
No report.
Councilor Abel.
No report.
Councilor Harrison.
I'm going to defer to my ward mate to talk about a wonderful ward meeting.
Councilor Skilling.
No report.
Who's winning your contest on newsletter?
I'm not going to say. I want to keep everybody interested.
What's the prize?
I'm not going to say that either.
Councilor LeBear.
Did we address item 14? Double check that.
Yeah, that was adopted under the consent.
Oh, okay. Got it. Then no report.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. This has been a little bit of a tough evening tonight. Last week, I had an opportunity to go to a CML workshop on governance, and it was very heavily stressed to us. Really what the roles of city council are. There's only 3 actually that were stressed, and I'd like to just tell them to you real quickly. First is that we represent the will of the people. The second is that we ensure accountability and responsiveness. And the third is that we set the direction of the organization. And I think we can see tonight that all of those principles are coming into play with this body. I would just like to make a little comment. I received a phone call today from Selena Williams, the lady that came to speak on the issue around Lakewood High School and the one-way traffic piece. I would just like to ask staff that as a professional courtesy, to please notify council when we have folks going into our particular ward and doing a petition or a survey. In this particular case, what's going on in the Lakewood High School community in that neighborhood, the emotions are heightened and everything becomes a flashpoint. It was difficult for me to tell her that, frankly, I didn't even know that this was happening. I don't know who directed staff to go out and do it. I have a little bit of concerns regarding the survey. It had two options. One was for one-way traffic, and the other one was for one-way traffic with time limits. Anytime you've got a survey, there's also another piece, which is that no change. And I think that's what Ms. Williams brought to my attention, and hopefully that came out in her presentation, is that people felt obligated to answer the survey. Had there been a third option, which is frankly what that community wants, is no change, it wasn't on that survey. So please, I'm just throwing that out as a professional courtesy to let us know, and I'd really like to know how it all came about, please. Thank you.
And if I might, that was actually done at the discretion of this body after the Lakewood High School study session, where we directed staff to take the hybrid recommendation. And we also said to please follow up and give a little bit more thought to the one-ways. So that was the process that this body set forth.
I understand, but there should have been a third option on the survey. And as a courtesy, Councillor Abel and I should have known that that was going out and what was being given to the people in our community.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent?
No report.
Councillor Beta?
No report.
Councillor Franks?
On the same line of communication, I wanted to do a positive there. I really am appreciative of the revised procedure of getting the neighborhood meeting notices. I really, many of them are quasi-judicial, but it's just nice knowing that I will be aware at the same time that the community's becoming aware. And so then I'm prepared with the remarks rather than seeming to be caught off guard. So along those lines of communication, I want to acknowledge that I really appreciate that change that's been recently implemented.
Councillor Gutwein?
Thank you. We will have our Ward 5 meeting on April 7th. It will be in honor of Earth Day. It will be about sustainability, and it will be about everyone's shocked. It will be how to live sustainably in your own home at whatever level you are at. So if you don't do anything, there will be some baby steps. If you're already doing a lot and want to learn how to do more, there will be some information there for you as well. So we just really want to make it useful and hope that people will come out and share what they do in their own homes as well. And then I just wanted to also briefly thank the students who came out today to talk about an issue that as a mother has been on my mind a lot. And over the weekend there was the march from students. I think that it's just been an emotional time to be a parent in this country. And I just want to, the reason I'm bringing it up is that I feel sometimes like there's a little bit of a disconnect from what we're hearing in the community and what I hear at the schools and what parents are worrying about, and what's going on in our kids' lives and in our lives, and some of the issues that we talk about in relation to our schools here on council. So I think that I'd just like to remind everyone on this body that the issues that come to us at public comment are not the only issues that our community is facing and dealing with. It is not easily accessible or equally accessible for people in our community to come out here on a Monday night at 7 o'clock and stay until 9:30, when frankly a lot of times we have bigger issues to worry about, like lockdowns. There were two, not one, two lockdowns in Jefferson County the week after Parkland and the week that we had the Lakewood High School study session. So parents didn't particularly feel like that was the priority to come out. It was a hard night for me to be there and have to talk about that. It's hard for me to listen to the kids and for them to have to advocate on these issues. So I'd just like to say, you know, it is our responsibility to listen to people more than who are able to make it here on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick reminder that May is fast approaching, and for the folks on this body who signed up to run on the council relay team for the marathon, I started running for the first time today, and it was not awesome. So, you know who you are. We got to get this team going. Councilor Skilling's way ahead of us.
Is it too late for us to pull out of that? Just kidding.
We could. We're going to try to schedule some time for West Metro Fire to come by. They have a lot of things going on, but one of the cool things is they were just named an iOS 1 agency, which ISO 1, which should result in potential insurance rates going down for the folks in the city of Lakewood because of the service that they provide. So hats off to them, and we're going to certainly want to hear more. No matter what side you were on, I think it was pretty inspiring to see the march or the marches throughout the nation and to see our young folks get out there and get involved. And I really hope that they continue to do that no matter what issue. It's really cool to see them out there, and it really touched me and touched a lot of folks. Next study session, we'll do a reports update from council. So if you want to give us an update on all your committees that you have or things that are going on, that would be great for next week. I was able to represent the city last week at the Mayor's Innovation Panel on why transit matters, and that was really cool to hear from other communities throughout the nation of a lot of the issues they're facing around transit, last mile, ironically growth, and things along those lines. So there's a lot of commonalities. There's a lot of communities, especially the folks on the panel, were communities where people want to live. So therefore, they're dealing with a lot of this stuff that we're dealing with. The funeral services for Mr. Ottoby will be on Wednesday at 1 p.m. at Our Lady of Fatima. So I want to make sure we followed up on that. And, you know, on the Seinfeld episode where they celebrate Festivus, they have the grievance of errors. And listen, there's a lot of smart people that come to this dais, people that are in this room, people that disagree, people on our staff, smart people who care. And, you know, maybe one time 2 years ago somebody wronged you or vice versa. Let's get it out. At the end of the day, let's come together and work together, and that's what's going to move us forward. If you have concerns about planning, sit down with Mr. Parker, talk to him, understand his point of view. It doesn't mean he's somehow trying to do something underhanded or doesn't care about the community. That's the conversation that needs to change. And once we do that on all sides, that's up here, that's out there, that's throughout a city of 155,000, that's going to begin to help the healing of some of the concerns that we hear today. And I'm happy to start at any point and try to move forward with that. But let's try to have that understanding, and let's understand where your points of view are, or where his are, or where Miss Hodson's is. And that's what I was trying to get across tonight. And we're all in this together, and if we have great employees, it's going to reflect on a great city. So if we want to have a Festivus where this whole body can get out their grievance of errors, let's do it. But let's move on, and let's look at the future of our city and keep moving forward. And I apologize to my colleagues up here for earlier when I was a little bit passionate and had a sidebar with the group, so I apologize for that. With that said, anything else for the good of the order, Ms. Hodson, Ms. Greer? All right. We will adjourn at 9:35 p.m. Thank you. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Thank you to our police agent as well.